Hey guys, welcome back to the Cast and Spear podcast. My name is John, and today we have back on the show Brian Fern. You'll know him as Uncle Learn You How on Instagram and all over the internets. Today we're going to be talking about Palu, and I'll let you know what that is in a second, as well as flashers and what fish these work on. Welcome back to the show, Brian.
Thanks, John.
Actually, I don't want to tell him what Palu is because I barely even know how to say it. So what is Palu?
All right, so Palu is a common term we use in Hawaii that means chum. You know, different people use different terms. It could be a fish burley. It could be bait fish that you just caught. It could be the skin or the guts of the last fish that you caught and set in the freezer. You could even use the guts of the current fish that you just captured to attract the next fish that you're hunting. So that essentially is Palu, right? And flashers, different realms as well, right? You can have a uh, flotation device that has a string of aluminum or plexiglass cutouts with some flashy mylar tape on it. And at the end, a super economical trick is you just go to Walmart or some bargain store like that and get one of those $1 mylar shopping bags. Cut those into slits and tie a knot in it and put that on a swivel at the bottom, and that replicates like an octopus. And it creates a lot of action on the bottom of that. And you can put a little 4-ounce, 3-4 ounce weight on the bottom as well. So you can create these things in series like every 3 feet or so. My flasher rig's about 35 feet long. So I know when I have it all out and I'm in deeper water, it's actually used for depth perception. Because when you're in really deep water and it's very abysmal, or like being in space and you're surrounded by plankton, you lose your depth perception. At least you say, okay, I know the bottom of my line is 40 feet, right? And then you can drop to the bottom of your line, hang out there, and see if anything's attracted to your flasher rig. So typically, if I'm going to dive in a blue water setting, I'm going to have that flasher float, and on it I will have a palu or chum bag with all my dead fish or whatever I'm going to use to attract the fish. I then use my 100-foot tag line and I attach that to my float with my flag on it. So that way, if I have to let go of the rig, it's not just this one little thing I'm trying to track down. You know, I got that 100 feet of line. I can pick it up anywhere along the way. My partner can pick it up along the way. But the beauty of keeping it there as opposed to keeping those things all the way 100 feet away from me is they're working for me, right? So if I happen to drift over a ledge system or some really nice topography where I know a certain species I may be hunting reside, I can then what I call wake up the reef. So if you ever been diving and you go, oh man, these grounds are perfect for uku, but you don't see anything, drop a little bit of chum or palu down, and before you know it, fish come out of the woodwork. You know, the bait fish start eating that chum, and those predatory fish that are out in the periphery that you didn't know they're usually there, just like sharks are usually there. But until they have a reason to show themselves, which you're creating. So the fish that you're hunting don't necessarily have to even eat the chum or the palu. They're attracted, their curiosity is piqued because you woke the reef up, because now you've got all these other little fish that you put into the mix. Their heartbeats are going, all this activity is happening in the water, and that's the number one rule of hunting, is creating curiosity. So you can essentially be in a barren wasteland and create this activity and this opportunity for yourself just by dropping chum. But the one thing you have to keep in mind when you wake up that reef, expect to see sharks. So if you're not a big fan of sharks, you may not want to do this. You certainly don't want to do this by yourself. I prefer to do this type of procedure when I have a partner, either using a kayak, boat, jet ski. So if the action gets hot and heavy with the sharks and they get hot and bothered, you have a way to get out and maybe move spots once it gets too uh, volatile in the water.
I never understood the wake up the reef thing until relatively recently when I was on a spot where I knew there was fish. I've seen them there before, but it was just kind of like a barren wasteland. So I went down, I grabbed a couple uni or sea urchins, and I started taking out the guts, and like the purple ones that are always doing the damage anyways. So broke them open, kind of like spreaded it around, and it's not instant. It takes some time, but then like after say like 10 minutes, you just watch that progression of like the small fish to the little bit bigger to the little bit bigger, and then all of a sudden you're like, where did that sheephead come from? Like, where were you, friend? And then it's almost like there it is. That was easy, but it takes some time, I'm guessing. Does it take time for you over there? Like, it's not just instant.
Yeah, so one way to gauge whether it's working. Should I stay in this spot? Should I move spots? One of the things I like to do is when I drop that layer of chum, I like to create what I call chum columns. Okay? So if I'm diving 100 feet and my target species is 100 feet, I don't necessarily want to do repetitive dives to 100 feet because I'm going to wear myself out relatively quickly. Ideally, you want to create those chum columns. So if I start dropping it and it starts to fall and all the fish have come and they've started eating it at 40 feet, and then it goes lower and lower and lower to where it's gone. Now, when I drop it again, those fish are going to come up higher. So every successive chum column potentially brings that target species up another layer to where now you only have to maybe do a 40-foot dive to shoot that fish that would not come from 100 feet, right? As far as how long you stay on a spot, if I drop the chum and it's falling straight down, I'll let it get all the way to the bottom. If nothing shows up, and I mean nothing, by the time it all falls, then we can, successfully say there's just nothing here. And then we move down the way. But if you're waking up the reef, you're creating activity, as you said with the unis, just give it some time, right? That's how you get better as a hunter, is being observant. You know, 9 out of 10 times, I'll call it snorkeling until I actually shoot a fish and land a fish. Now we're spearfishing.
I like that. I like that a lot. And that is the column thing I've never heard. I think that's so smart. It's way smarter. That might mean I can actually dive in Hawaii since I can't hit your 100-foot depth. I got to do a lot more chumming. Bring them up. Um, okay, let's switch a little bit over to flashers. Are there certain species that you just know are just so good? If you bring a flasher out, you're pretty much going to see them for the day, or is it just kind of dependent?
Definitely. So if you recall how I described the flasher rig system, where you have a series of shiny objects and then a mylar octopus looking thing with a weight on the bottom, right? So that's a really good rig to drag around with you in very deep water, in open ocean, blue water conditions, because that reflectivity of that and the action that's created creates curiosity from fish that are just out roaming, right? But if you're on like a deep reef spot, um, spoons work really well. And you can go to Walmart and buy 4 spoons for 88 cents. So each one only costs you about 20 cents. And the beauty of using the spoon is obviously you don't want to litter in the ocean. But if you throw a spoon and for whatever reason you're not able to recover it, maybe it's too deep, that spoon's going to disintegrate to nothing in a matter of months, right? So ethically, that's the best thing to use. Other people will use, 6-inch segments of maybe 3/4 or 1-inch PVC pipe, and they'll wrap that with mylar tape. That's going to replicate a dead bait fish. Like out here, we have the opelus, which are about this long, or an akule or a halalu. These are all Hawaiian-based bait fish. But when you throw that pipe, it kind of has this action of a very slow fall, right? So if you ever gotten yourself into a school of bait fish and then you start getting more alert, right? Because the predatory fish may be around, you don't really need to waste your time in the massive bait fish because those predatory fish are actually going to be toward the back of the school they're going to be picking off the weak, the diseased, the disabled, the exhausted fish that are trailing behind. So that's kind of the benefit of the pipe flasher. Onos love, which is wahoo. They love those pipe flashers because that's essentially equivalent to a bait ball was occurring. You've got birds coming this way from the top. You've got fish hitting from the bottom. And that pipe replicates the collateral damage created by a fish getting whacked by a marlin tail or something and kind of being unconscious and falling. It's an easy meal. So they'll hone right into that. Your jacks, like your omilus, uluas, yellow spots, they absolutely go ballistic for spoons. So when a spoon is thrown, it creates a lot more sporadic action as it falls down the water column. So, and they'll shoot straight in. Barracudas, we call them kakus. I've seen them come in for a spoon and just whack it several times and figure out it's not food. And the next one will come in and whack it several times and figure out it's not food. And then you can let it fall all the way to the bottom. And when you go to retrieve it, you go down, you pick it up, you dust, and you can actually use it as a lure on the bottom when you go to retrieve it.
What about those guys? I've seen a few that have like a spoon lure, like a cast master or just a piece of metal, but they leave it attached to their gun, like the muzzle of the gun. Have you seen that?
I've tried it in the past, and I think it can create curiosity, but that being said, if it's on the muzzle of your gun, that fish is so close to you already. So that little teeny shiny thing in perspective to say a spoon that's 6 inches long or a pipe that's 6 inches long isn't going to have the same draw, right? Because that fish has to be relatively committed to checking you out in order to even see that thing. So whether it really seals the deal or not, in my experience, I don't see that it has. So I don't really use them anymore because it can create noise on your gun. Like when you drop down, it flutters, it hits your gun, it can actually spook the fish. So I
Gotcha.
kind of stopped using them.
How about putting mylar stickers on, say, your fin blades or other things like that?
If you want your fins to be eaten by barracudas, that's great.
For sure. Um, is there any other things in regards to chum or flashers that people should know about?
Well, I can tell you guys a little story here. So, a friend of mine, I was teaching him this system, and we happened upon a deep ledge. I told him, I'm going to swim up current. I'm going to drop Palu for you. He's down current. It's going to float toward him. He's going to have the opportunity to shoot the next fish. So we did that. I kicked beyond the ledge because you always want to hunt the up current side of a ledge because that's where all the activity is happening. That's where you get that upwelling of current. That's what holds the bait there. So you always want to dive the up current side of a ledge. So I would kick beyond that with the goal of having that chum be at that water column level that would bring the fish up to him so he wouldn't have to dive so deep at the front of that ledge system. And it worked excellent. I did that, he shot a fish. We drifted down, we kicked back up. It was his turn. He took the fish he just shot, opened up the gut, started chumming the belly contents. I then waited at the head of that ledge. I shot a fish. We repeated that process 4 or 5 times until we decided that was enough and we might as well go in now before the sharks show up. But these are the kind of things that come with experience that you're not just going to learn from taking that one freediving course and chartering a boat and having the captain drop you right on the fish and telling, okay, there's fish at 40 feet, dive. Right? So this is why time in the water is so important. Try things out, experiment, see how they work for you.
Perfect, man. Um, I guess, how can people find you if they want to reach out?
So I am Uncle Learn You How on Instagram, and kind of a weird spelling. It's UNKOLEARNUHOW. That's the same for my email, unclelearnyouhow@gmail. I also have a website, unclelearnyouhow.com. If you guys didn't know, I'm the distributor for Manny Sub products in the US and Hawaii. So if you go to my website, that's where those things are available if you're interested in them. Also on TikTok and YouTube, all the same name.
This guy's everywhere. So if you want to reach out to him, you know where to find him. And if you need to talk to somebody to convert your traditional gun into an epic roller, Brian's your guy. Until next time, guys, dive safe, and we'll see you on the next one.